Well, thank you all so much for joining. Super excited for you all to be here for automation best practices with Java workshop. Um, this workshop, how I came up with it was just thinking about how hard of a time we've all been having the last few years, with COVID and all that. And I wanted a way to give back to the community. And so I teamed up, obviously, with Sauce, who I work for, to give away these free workshops, help people, anyone that wants to upskill in test automation, and just share any knowledge that I got, to share it with you all, and then combine us as a community to help a greater cause than ourselves. So it's kind of like me helping you all, and in return, all I ask is that we together help a greater cause than ourselves. The charity that we are helping today is code.org. They are a nonprofit dedicated to expanding access to computer science in schools and increasing participation by young women and students from other underrepresented groups. Their vision is that every student in school has the opportunity to learn computer science as part of their core K-12 education. I'm really passionate about this cause. I mean, imagine if we all got to learn computer science when we were, K through 12. The only thing I learned was like typing during that time and Microsoft Word, which, I would be so far more advanced if I had better education than that. And so they're helping to do that. It's totally up to you, whatever you want to donate. If you like the workshop, all I ask is that you go to this URL here and give any donation that you feel is appropriate. And Sauce Labs will match all of our donations up to $2,500. And 100% of the profits go to the charity. I get nothing. Sauce Labs gets nothing. As I said, we're here to just kind of do good for you guys and the world. So 1 second, let me just kill all the stuff here. So today we are going to learn multiple different topics. We're gonna basically create a test automation framework that's gonna do functional browser testing, visual end-to-end testing. It's gonna run in parallel, and we're gonna get robust test reports with logs and videos through our Sauce Labs Selenium grid. These are the technologies that we are going to use. Hopefully everybody is familiar with at least some of these technologies. Here is the breakdown of our table of contents and how we're gonna learn along the way. It's basically from start to end. We're gonna start here and we're gonna go all the way down step by step. We are gonna get like 1 10-minute break. I unfortunately always have so much content, and I want to deliver it, in as little time as possible. So as I was developing it, I realized 3 hours is probably not enough. So maybe if you all want, you can stick around a little bit longer. I'm going to try to squeeze it in 3 hours, but I don't know if it'll happen. But anyways, we're going to have like a 10-minute break, I think, like here, for you to get some food or drink, or use the restroom or anything like that. And the rest of the time, we're going to be learning and doing hands-on coding. So some of the requirements: this is not a beginner's course. I'm not going to be teaching anything about Java or Selenium here. We're going to be diving deep into code, using page objects, and writing different types of tests. So hopefully you have that under your belt. Worst case, this is always recorded. You can always pay attention to the course anyway, and then revisit any topics afterwards that you weren't so familiar with. So I am obviously your instructor. This is my cute little dog, Mia. I've been doing testing since 2008, started out in manual testing, but I always had a passion for coding, so then transitioned into doing automated testing. I was using a tool back in the day called QTP. I don't even know if people are familiar with it anymore. It's been so long. Then it became like UFT. Then I transitioned to Selenium in 2015. Selenium with C#, and ever since then, I've been doing Selenium plus a bunch of other different types of tools for automated testing. I was even so passionate about testing that I started my own blog, Ultimate QA, and there I help people learn how to do test automation better. And now I am super lucky to work for Sauce Labs as a solutions architect, which basically means that I help customers literally all over the world in their test automation practices, whether improving their UI automation, integration testing, unit testing, everything to help them achieve their digital quality goals. We are lucky enough to be joined by two awesome teaching assistants today. They are my fellow solution architects working with, we're all working together. We got Ayal. I'll let Ayal introduce himself.
Hi everyone. So my name is Eyal. I'm located in the UK. Let's also open the camera if it's possible. So I'm a colleague of Nikolai. And as Nikolai said, we are a solution architect. The best practice, the rule of us is the best practice to use Sauce Lab, to use the automations, how to create the best practice of framework. So hopefully in these 3 or more hours, me and Chris can help. So any question that you have, you can share it in our Slack channel, and we will do our best to answer as fast as we can.
Thanks, Ayal. And we also have Chris. Chris, if you want to say a little bit about yourself.
Hey, everyone. It's really nice to have you all here. Going last gives me the unfortunate role of not having anything left to say. Nikolai and I all covered it beautifully. So hopefully everyone here is able to take something home from this course, and really Nikolai's got some great stuff for you here. And as Ayal said, if you need any help, please reach out to us in the Slack channel, and hopefully we'll be able to get you back on track for the rest of the workshop.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, Chris and Ayal are amazing at Java. Chris probably way better than me at Java. So we're lucky to have them both. I posted the link to the Slack channel. Please join it. That's where you all go to get tech support. The goal is to keep the workshop flowing for everybody. Of course, it's technology, so people are going to stumble and there's going to be weird errors. And these guys will be here to help you. Just reach out to them in Slack, and they'll help you troubleshoot whatever problems you might have. And I posted the link to the Slack channel in the Zoom chat. And it's also here in the README as well as a link, so you can. Everything is really in this README and in this repo that you're ever going to need. So this is kind of the source of truth. But again, we're going to be trying to help you guys out throughout different methods as well. Okay, cool. So the very first thing that you all hopefully already have, we try to send you multiple emails to get everybody set up beforehand, but I know it doesn't happen, is you want to get set up. Hopefully you have your free Sauce Labs account and you have your demo screener account. Go ahead and get those. You'll need your username and API keys. And then you have 2 options for setup. You're going to be able to set up a local environment, which really I wouldn't expect most of you all to be able to do before right now. At this time, it takes way too long to set up a local environment, download your IDE, install Java and all that. So if you don't already have that ready because you didn't come in here with the Java knowledge, I recommend you use the Gitpod setup. Gitpod setup is you're going to basically be coding in your browser. It's going to start a container in your browser and you'll be writing code there. But of course, if you have the local setup, then wonderful. And ultimately, both of those setups, how they really end is you navigate to this directory, Automation Best Practices Workshop, and you're going to run sanity tests. If you run your sanity tests and everything passes, then you know your setup is complete. And we can do that together actually really quickly. I'll show you all. Again, whether local or Gitpod, it doesn't matter. You can see I've got my repository here, obviously what I've been working on. You can see I'm in this workshop directory, right? And then ultimately you want to do Maven test, G test, And was it sanity? Sanity test. You're going to run your sanity test, which will ultimately check that the environment is set up correctly. It's going to run a test in Sauce Labs, and it's going to run a visual test. Both of those ensuring that everything is working. And let me shift my keyboard here so that it's easier for me to type and I don't have to turn sideways. So I'll let that run. Once it passes, you know you're good. If you're not good, you troubleshoot until you figure it out. And of course, you got Chris and Ayal to help you here with any issues. You can go to Slack help desk channel, or there's the other channel, and reach out for help there. Cool. And probably the coolest part, which maybe surprises you all, but I decided to do this as well, is anybody that sticks around to the end, I'm gonna give away 2 backpacks, 2 awesome Sauce Labs backpacks. It's just gonna be a random drawing of whoever's left in the Zoom at the end. So stick around and you'll get this awesome backpack. And then final piece of information is this key here. Throughout the workshop, we're going to be going through demonstrations, exercises. You'll see these light bulbs, which means they're a tip. This person lifting this weight means an exercise for you to do. On your keyboard, you're going to be coding. And then along the way, we're going to have these questions that we're all going to stop and talk about. And participation is highly encouraged because I want this to be a conversation and a learning experience for all of us. And yeah, just try not to scroll beyond this question before we discuss, because a lot of times the answer is right after the question. So it's much more interesting when we don't have the answer after the question. Wonderful. So let me do a quick check here. I'm going to put up a little poll to check who is set up with their environment. Just curious. So in your Zoom, you should have a poll come up somewhere that asks who's set up and who is not. Please just respond so that I get a better gauge of where everybody is at. I see there are a number of people that are not set up. Again, if you're not set up, the ideal state is for you to already have a Java environment, and you basically just need to set up your environment variables, right? Which setting up your environment variables, you can follow instructions here or here, depending if you're on Mac or Linux. But if you don't have a Java environment, you want to follow the Git pod setup. It'll be the easiest, takes about 5 minutes max, I would say. The Git pod setup, follow that. I'm going to drop it in the chat as soon as this. Oh, I can already drop it in the chat. For the Git pod setup, it'll be the easiest, nothing to download. It's simply a forking of this repository, pre-pending with this URL, logging in with your GitHub account. And then you should be able to run and work through the browser. Yeah, there's a number. And about 50%, I would say a little less than 50% is not set up. So yeah, please go ahead and get set up with Gitpod if you don't already have a working Java environment. And again, we got chat support in Slack for anyone that is struggling. Okay, cool. Let's move on. We're first gonna go to end-to-end browser tests. So let's start with end-to-end browser tests. The very first thing to do is to understand our application under test. So the application that we are using is saucedemo.com. This is a simple e-commerce application. 1 second. It's a simple e-commerce application. You can see there are a number of acceptable usernames, right? If you want to log in, and then secret sauce. So here is what that application looks like. You can remove or add items to a cart. Sorry, I have this like floating window here that I want to get rid of. You have a number of things you can do, right? You can add items to cart. You can see the cart gets updated. Then when you go inside of the cart, you'll see the things that exist in the cart. And then you just can do a checkout. And then when you are successfully checked out, you get this message, thank you for your order, right? It represents a lot of common applications that are existing today. So let's think about a some of our testing gaps that we want to cover and ensure are working for this application. And those I'm actually having saved here. And here is just a part of our testing strategy. I wouldn't say it's comprehensive. It could be more detailed for sure, but I think that it covers a lot of very important, very business relevant functionality that we want to ensure is working. Here's how it works, right? You can see you got 4 different columns, and we're going to be updating this throughout the workshop. So we obviously want to make sure that the login page renders, which ensures that our application is up and running. When we test it, we're going to actually replace this with a check mark. And throughout, we're going to decide which type of test are we actually going to use to meet this expected behavior and the technologies that we're going to use to perform that testing type, right? We're going to ensure that a valid user can log in and ensure that a user can check out, probably one of the most important test cases, because that's how our e-commerce app generates money, is when people can actually check out. Then in today's modern day and age, it's extremely important that our application looks good on different types of browsers, because web applications nowadays are typically responsive. And one of the biggest problems that can happen with web applications is different renderings of the application can cause different kinds of bugs. We're going to talk about that later. And so we want to ensure that each of our most important pages looks good on Chrome and Safari, the 2 most popular browsers, in the most popular resolution. We can even take this a lot further and ensure that this looks good not only on desktop, but also on mobile, right? Which serves about 50% of the world's traffic. Then we can do a lot more testing, which unfortunately I didn't have time to set up in today's workshop, but we can kind of think about how there's more testing to be done even after all of this. Even with such a small application, we can ensure our application is accessibility friendly, making sure that front-end performance is behaving as appropriate, and that our application is secure, and potentially other testing types, as I mentioned, kind of making sure it looks good on mobile, and maybe even some other stuff that I haven't thought about. So that's our application. So to you all, kind of thinking about, if we're going to start tackling these risks, how are we going to ensure that our login page renders? Well, that test we can very easily do with a functional browser test. And so at this point, right, the functional browser test is going to basically pull up our application and ensure that our application is working and rendering. And so now is an exercise for everybody to do. You're going to write some tests using best practices by going to this class, and then finishing all of the tests. The instructions are in there for how to finish the tests. You're going to run all the tests and make sure they work. And you can do that at the end by running tests like this, and then all of your tests should pass. Some of the rules that you have to follow in order to make these tests work. We're using page objects, which already exist for you all, so we don't have to code them from scratch, but it's really great to see them in there and be able to use them. One test for one feature, and do not create any new code. All the code is already there for you. You're just going to reuse existing code. So go ahead and start doing that now. I'll show you where to get started. So if you got your environment Gitpod or locally set up, you're basically navigating to this end-to-end test. Oh, and let me actually explain the layout of the repository. So you can see I'm here in the workshop module, right? We have exercises and we have solutions. The solutions are basically what happens after the exercise has been completed. If for whatever reason you stumble and something weird happens and you can't solve the exercise, you can always come back to solutions and check the exact solution, but don't peek at the solutions until you feel it's necessary, because then it's not as fun to do the exercise when you already know the answer, right? And so with that said, you're going to be doing all the exercises in this exercise package. You're going to navigate to end-to-end tests in this one, and then you are going to follow the instructions for implementing these tests. The very first test I already have implemented for you. You can see it's ensuring that our application renders. You can see it's already using the page objects that have been created. It's visiting our login page and asserting that our login page is displayed. We can run this test. And we can navigate to Sauce Labs. We can sign in. You can already see my IntelliJ did tell me that one test has passed, but we can also navigate to Sauce Labs. And here is our test. You can see it says our app renders, right? You can see it has a video that will execute exactly what our app does. So visits the login page, and that's it. Ensures that an element is present, which is this is displayed method. And then there's two other tests remaining, right? That the login works and that a user can check out, meeting all three of our requirements, A, B, and C right here. So that's what we're trying to meet with these end-to-end tests. So go ahead, give this a shot. I'm going to put up a poll on in the Zoom, and just let us know in the poll when you are done. You got Slack channel for support, and you can also post any questions. I can't handle the too much technical questions in the Zoom because it's much harder, but you can post like other questions in the Zoom that I'll try to answer for everybody. Someone asked if there's going to be a recording, and yes, there's. Oh, Susie is already typing. Thank you, Susie. Let me put up the poll. I'll give you all a little bit of time to set that up. I'm going to mute my. So whenever you are done, please take the poll and let me know that you are done. Amazing. Someone is super fast already done. I hope it wasn't one of the essays. 2 people are done. Amazing. You guys are insanely fast. And don't worry if you're not done yet, please. Everybody here is different levels. We have beginners, we have advanced people. Don't worry about it. We are here for you to give you an amazing experience, hopefully teach you some cool stuff. So please don't be shy. Let me mute my Zoom, my Slack, so that it's not bothering you all. Cool. Cool. So still a majority of the people are not finished. Again, it's totally okay. Let me see how many people. We got 40 people in this workshop. So I'll wait a bit more for everybody to get done. All the page objects already exist. You literally just reusing the code, right? So think about navigating the application. I'm just going to be talking here. Feel free to keep coding. Think about navigating the application, okay? Let me get back to the beginning. We got the login page. After the login page, we got a products page. After a products page, we got the shopping cart page. After the shopping cart page, we go to the checkout step 1, I think, checkout page. Let me see if there's a step 1. Yeah, the checkout step 1. There might be a checkout overview. Let's see here. So we got a checkout step 1 page and a checkout overview page and a checkout complete page. And that checkout complete page is after this guy, checkout complete. So that's how one page object maps to one HTML page or component. That's the idea behind page objects. So you're going to have one class, one instantiation of a class per page for that last, final, most important test. And again, feel free to throw up any questions while I wait for at least a good portion of the people to be done. And maybe to help you all along, I will, I'll go through the second test together because I can see that less than 50% of the people are done. So let's do the login works together, right? So we're adding the code below here. So we have our login page. What's the first thing that we want to do when we visit the login page? We want to log in. So I just hit dot and you can navigate the definitions, right? We're going to log in and then it's asking for a username. That username will come from the beginning, standard user. And we're going to enter that here. Okay. Now that you are logged in, what's next? Well, you just need an assertion, right, to ensure that you are successfully logged in. So why don't we do something like assert true, and it's going to be a very similar assertion as here, right? Here we logged in and asserted that a page is visible. So why don't we do the same thing? So in that case, we're going to be on what? Which page is that going to be after we are logged in? Let's see. A logical page object is the products page. So let's see if that exists. Look, there it is, a products page. Okay. What is it asking for? A driver. You can see how we've passed in drivers before. So just pass that in. And then, oh, there it is. Look, an is displayed method. Beautiful. Oh, and actually, sorry, I totally tripped you up. There's actually already an assertion for you here. So you really only needed, you didn't need this. And I messed up one other thing is I totally forgot to visit the login page, right? So we need to open it first. There you go. We visit, we log in, and that's already there. So let's give this a shot. Let's see if it worked. Yeah, don't be touching the assertions. The assertions are there in place, meaning that the test is going to keep failing until you actually make it pass. And I don't want you passing the test by changing the assertions. I want you passing the test by writing the correct test code. Cool. So there's our login works. Let's look at Sauce Labs, how it shows up here. There's our login works test. You can see got a green success check mark. Here it executed on Windows 10 96, took 11 seconds. Let's open it up and see what actually happens. Beautiful. That is how the test works. Let's see. Hey, if you have finished, please post in the poll whether you finished or not. I still see less than 50% of the attendees have finished their exercise. The checkout test will obviously be a bit more burdensome. You've got a number of pages to navigate through, but all the pages already exist. Just think of a logical page name, a link to a logical action that a user is taking to perform that action, and you should be okay. And of course, you got your beautiful IntelliSense that'll help guide you. That'll be this last test that you need to do. Oh, there's an ignored test at the bottom. Please don't open it or edit it yet. That's going to be a future exercise. I see a number of people still haven't finished the exercise. Curious, where are you all struggling and how can I help? Oh, I see a really good question. I see a really good question from one person. So screener visual end-to-end testing, unfortunately, doesn't have like a self-service sign up, right? You have to get a demo account first. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So if we come here and where I tell you to get your accounts, so here, you have to request a demo account, and you're not like gonna be able to get an API key automatically as you can in Sauce Labs. So if you didn't do this beforehand, basically just ignore visual testing for now, and know that your visual tests will not run until you have that API key. However, obviously you'll be able to watch me run the tests, and so in the future, you'll just plug in your API key and your stuff will work. Wonderful question, Faisal. I hope, yeah. Yeah, with no API key, your visual test will basically fail, right? So in your sanity test, with your visual, you know, if it was whatever wrong, right? Wrong or non-existent, your visual test, let's see what error you get. I mean, it's definitely not going to work. I don't know what error it's going to be. Let's see.
Probably a 401 unauthorized.
Nice, perfect.
At least that's what Ruslan
I'm getting a 500
there.
child key fails because API key is required. So that's what would happen to you all if you don't have an API key in Screener. If you do have a Screener account, to get your API key, let's log in. That'll be in account, and then API key, you click it, you'll have access to it. And then you just copy and put it in your environment variables. I see about 50% of the people have finished. The other 50%, are you able to, do you need to update your answer to a yes in the poll? Or if not, what are you struggling with that I can help you? Yeah, I'll wait. Nice. Okay, we're getting more people that are successful. I'll do like a few more people to be successful. Is everybody where is everybody struggling? Just throw it anywhere in the chat, in Slack. Done. Yeah, Nigel, thank you for letting us know. Just please make sure to update the poll as well to let us know there. Let's see here. Checking the timing. Give it a few more minutes, everybody. Hey, let us know what you're struggling with. Okay, cool. I think we have a good amount of people that are finished. If you're continuing to struggle, we got the chat to help you, or the Zoom chat or the Slack account. Just let us know what you need. Let's move on here. Cool. So the question is, how does all this work? I made you do an exercise without really explaining everything behind the scenes. Hopefully it was easy enough, and hopefully it also got you thinking, hey, how does all of this just magically work? Oh, well, let's also do the user can check out, right? So we are just gonna recopy what we've done before. Actually, I'm just gonna copy it from, no, I need the login too. Let's quickly do it together. Don't need any of this. Okay, we're visiting, then we're logging in. Then we need what, a products page. That's going to take in a driver. Okay, then we're going to use the products page to add any product to cart, irrelevant of what we are adding, right? Because we only want to make sure that a user can check out. Who cares which product we add? Then we need a shopping cart page. And by the way, I can do this so easily because obviously I've done this flow so many times. I wouldn't expect anyone else here unfamiliar with the application under test to be able to do this flow so easily, but I would expect that you to be able to look at a page and link it back to a page object, especially the page objects that already exist in the code, and then be able to create that flow. I'm going to call that cart page, shopping cart page. That needs a driver too. Then we want to visit it, right? Visit that page. And then, oh, we actually don't even need a shopping cart page, do we? Let me see. No, there's no checkout page. There's no checkout. Let me see here. I see I even forgot the flow. You got the shopping. All we need to do is, do we need to go? Oh, we do need to go to checkout. Sorry about that. Cart page dot checkout. No. Oh, are we just going to checkout page directly? Let me see. Yeah, I think we're just going to checkout page directly. Oh, I'm logged out. At the cart. We're probably just going here directly. Yeah, we're probably just going here directly. So let me fix this. Checkout. Checkout. Step 1 page. That's that. Step 1 page. That visit. And then what are we gonna do? Check out. Dot enter personal details. There you go. Then we need a checkout step 2, right? Checkout overview page. Checkout overview page. Checkout overview page takes in a driver. Checkout overview page. We are already there. Do we even need to do anything with it? Let me check. So I could, of course, check the solution, but just wanted to do that. Oh, I probably need to click finish. Finish. There we go. Beautiful. And then we have an assertion at the bottom. Assert, checkout complete, pages displayed. That, let's see if that works. If it doesn't, we'll see what happened, what went wrong. Run that. Cool. And I see in that time we've got more people completing. If you're completing this successfully, please mark that in the polls. Cool. Everything, our user was able to check out successfully. Let's go quickly take a look at our test here. User can check out. Let me zoom in a bit. Make this bigger. We're running the test. Let's see. Let's make sure that there's nothing fake going on here. Adding an item to a cart and checking out. Super fast, super easy, and we are done. So that's kind of how the test should look like. Again, you can go back to the solution. If you weren't able to get it, the solution would be end-to-end solution test, right? So there's that, how it worked. And so now just a little bit of explanation of exactly what's going on here. So how were we able to so easily create page objects and just run tests? Well, there are two important Maven packages at play here. One of them is sauce bindings that makes it really easy to plug in and use Sauce Labs. I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And then the other one is this Sauce Labs JUnit plugin. Sauce Labs JUnit package that makes it really easy to report test results and test status. So if we're looking at our end-to-end test, you can see it inherits from a sauce-based test, and that actually you can see comes from that package. And so just by inheriting from this test class, we get a bunch of the capabilities. You can see a constructor that automatically sets a few configurations. You can see our before hook, which uses sauce bindings. So sauce bindings is a really friendly wrapper around the Selenium API, making grid integration much easier. If any of you are familiar with how to create a Selenium grid, it usually takes a lot of code like this. Look here, something like this is how we used to do it. But the sauce bindings, it's much easier. So you can see we're creating new sauce options, starting a new session, creating a new session and then starting it. That's really kind of all it takes to start a Windows 10 Chrome session in Sauce Labs. Then we have a sauce test watcher. That's from JUnit 4, okay, which extends test watcher from JUnit 4. And because of that, we are able to do a succeed, a method that executes on succeed, in which case we are saying that whether the test passed or failed. And then if it failed, we are able to do, put the failure reason in our test. And also we stop the Sauce Lab session saying that our test has failed. And so that's how all of that functionality easily got into our test without us having to code anything extra, just by extending the sauce-based test. And in the sauce-based test underneath the hood uses sauce bindings. That part is not like super critical to this workshop at all. I simply kind of wanted to explain the magic happening underneath the hood so that nobody is confused. Let me see here what we got. And now, before we review our test coverage, does anyone have any questions around that, like that I may not be clear? There's always miscommunication in the world, so I want to make sure that everything is clear. You can post it in the chat if you have some questions that you didn't understand, that you were like confused about. You're like, oh, what the heck is going on here? This doesn't make any sense. Anything and everything. Again, I'm here for you all, and I'm hoping to have a nice conversation about testing. I'll wait a moment just to give everyone a chance to ask any questions. Everyone is quiet today. People, have you not had your coffees? Maybe people in India are already ready to go to sleep, because I'm on the East Coast, so I know it's late for you guys. So thank you so much for joining from there super late. Okay, cool. No questions. Feel free to ask anytime throughout this workshop. We got amazing TAs and myself to answer any questions that you might have. So with our tests, what did we just accomplish? Let's go in here and update this document. So our login page renders, right? We performed that check. So let's grab this check mark. We tested that. How did we test it? Well, that was this test right here, the very initial test, making sure that our application renders, opening it up, visiting, and asserting that it's displayed. That's one of the really nice things about end-to-end functional tests is they test the entire stack of our application, right? From the HTML, the rendering, all the way down to the database. And if there's any kind of interactions with the database's API, it tests that entire vertical stack. And so if this page comes up, we know that our application is at least up and working. Does everything work as expected? No, absolutely not. But we at least know that our application comes up and our users can see it. So we did that. So what did we do? We used end-to-end UI, end-to-end functional. That's all kind of very similar. So we're going to keep that. It was a functional test. That was an end-to-end test that was touching the UI. So we're just going to keep those in there. And so what technologies did we use? We used Selenium primarily. We used Sauce Labs as well, but Sauce Labs is not really necessary. You can obviously do it through a cloud and get the video recordings and the screenshots and all that kind of extra functionality, or you can just do it with Selenium on a local browser or even like a Docker container. Valid user can log in, same exact stuff. So I'm just literally going to copy this and paste it and paste that, right? We just wrote 3 functional tests meeting each one of these requirements. Oh, by the way, and if you wanted to ensure that all of these tests run and work, you can go to your terminal and use Maven test using -d test flag. And then if you just say end-to-end tests, it'll run all of the tests together. So let that run. So you can see the tests have started. It's going to execute one test method at a time. If we come back here to Sauce Labs, you'll see we have one session running. Here's what it looks like when it's running. You can already see app renders less than a minute ago by me was executed. Here's another login test that was executed and passed, and now the last one. So that's how you can run all the tests together. And throughout the workshop, you'll see us filtering different tests in different ways to achieve the desired results that we want. Cool. So that is all good. Let me save these changes. Actually, I'm not going to save them because I don't want to have to go back and no, it's okay. Let me save them so that it looks prettier. There you go. Awesome. So we've so far accomplished 3 requirements. And let's see where we're at. Cool. So I have a question for everybody here. Were those the best type of tests that we could have written to cover that functionality? And it's about to basically cover those risks. Let me know in the chat what you think. Yes, no, maybe. Nice. Someone said they could be more atomic. Okay, that's a good answer. Anyone else? Anyone agree, disagree? Let's see, someone posted in the Q&A section. I guess it's kind of acceptance test. So for UI testing, that looks good. Okay. Anybody else? Anyone else think anything? Okay, cool. I think that kind of sums it up. Let's take a look and see whether these were the best tests or not. So we are now in a totally new section in atomic tests, which is our next section. And as Borat says here, and probably as you could figure out from where we were going, was that these are not the most efficient, ideal tests for our testing purposes. As somebody said, that they are acceptance tests and they're through the UI, which is great, but there's different levels of greatness, right? We can do something one way, or we can do something more efficiently that makes our tests faster and more stable. And so that's why we do automated atomic tests. Here's a little description of what an automated atomic test is. It's basically ensuring that we are testing only a single feature through our tests. This is whether it's a unit test, an integration test, or an end-to-end test, an acceptance test. All of this applies kind of the same. It's much harder at the acceptance test level. However, it is possible. It's possible to just focus on a single feature and ensure that that feature is working, while basically we can mock or remove or isolate everything else that isn't relevant. This is like a really deep topic. There's so much to talk about in terms of technology, but we're gonna do one atomic test here, and I hope that it will kind of open up your eyes and you'll be able to see some possibilities that we can do with web applications. There's a lot more. I put a read more link there. I've written a massive blog post about this, doing different kind of examples. So the steps to creating an atomic test is find the functionality that we want to test, isolate or mock or fake all irrelevant actions around that functionality. A lot of times that involves setting stuff up and tearing stuff down. And then somewhere in the middle is the thing that we actually want to test. And so that's the part that we're testing the relevant feature through the UI. And so which of our tests was not atomic? Let's come over here and take a look. So actually, let's come over here and take a look at the code. Let me hide this. So the test that is not atomic is this user can check out. Why is this test not atomic? Well, because it's testing multiple features. Our very first feature that we tested was that our application renders, right? We ran this test and we already know that our application is up and working and the login page is there. In fact, not only are we ensuring that our login page is here, we're also even ensuring that our login page is there. So we're checking the login page 2 times. We also already tested the login in this test. We know it works. However, we are repeating the entire process here. Again, going through the login and testing that. And even there are stuff like adding a product to a cart. That is relevant to our test case that a user can check out. However, we don't necessarily need to do all of these actions through the user interface. Why do we want to decrease the amount of interactions we have with the user interface? Because number one, it's slow, right? All of these commands touching the user interface are web requests, and web requests have to travel over the internet, and making everything slow. But second, and probably the most annoying part, is it makes everything less stable. The more web requests and Selenium commands we have, the less stable our tests actually become. We did a study like 1 or 2 years ago where we analyzed 2 billion tests, and we found the pattern that I kind of have experienced my whole career, which is that the longer the test is, the more likely it is to fail. In fact, the test that was 7 minutes long was 3 times as likely to fail as a test that was 2 minutes long. Again, it just falls back to that entire idea that more Selenium commands, more flakiness in the automation. It's just more things can go wrong. And so this is there, but it's unnecessary. The only part that we actually really care about is having a product in a cart and making sure that a user can successfully check out. So really, it's this part that was, this part that was really only relevant to our test, because all the other stuff is just preconditions. And so let's look at our application and actually how it works under the hood. So let me come here and log out. And we'll look at the dev console. Let's look at our application. Let me see. Okay, nothing there. Sorry, I'm just checking, make sure there's nothing saved, okay? So that there's no trickery going on. This is saved. We're gonna get rid of this. Okay, so here's how our application works under the hood. And a lot of applications work this way. Not all applications work this way, so it's important to determine how your application works at your environment. But as I said, a lot of them work this way, and then others work in kind of different ways. So when we log in, let's take a look at what happens. Our application uses a cookie mechanism, which is super common across the web for authentication. So we just logged in. If we come down here to our cookies, we can see that we have a cookie set with the session username and then the value there for our application. And so once you log in, a cookie was dropped. And so this is something that we can actually do without interacting with any web elements in the browser. We can do this with all types of logins. We can do this with logins that drop a cookie. We can do this with logins that hit a web API and then get a token back. We can replicate that as well. We can do this with applications that hit a web API and get a cookie back that gets dropped. There's multiple types of login mechanisms, and most of them can easily be done without touching the user interface. Okay, we got a cookie. Now, what about adding an item to a cart? If we click an item, add an item to a cart, and then we look at our local storage, we can see that now we have this key here called cart contents that has this value, right? So what happens if, for example, we do document dot local store, actually it's local storage dot set item, and do something like this, right? But instead of item 4, we put in, let's say, item 1. We add that here. We go look at our application. We see that now we have 2 items in our application. And if we refresh it, the UI will update to 2 items. So again, not touching the user interface, I'm able to manipulate how many items there are in a cart. We can do the same thing for the logging in part. So let me show you that. Let me reset app state and log out. So just to show you nobody's cheating, here's a cookie, no session username cookie, right? If we come to the console and do document dot cookie, yeah, cookie, and do something like this, you can see that if we set this cookie with this session username and then pass in the username, let's do that and hit enter. And then let's take a look at our application and the cookies. You now see that we have this session username available. And if we wanted to visit a page behind the login, such as inventory HTML, we can do that because we are logged in. While if we weren't logged in, here, let me log out, you can see the cookie disappeared. And then I try to do inventory/HTML, it's not allowed because we're not logged in. And so that's how we can bypass logins, but also we can inject items into a cart without interacting with the UI. And of course, we can replicate all of this, in our case with Selenium, but in other cases, if there's a web request that needs to be performed, you can use the appropriate web request library to perform that operation. And usually those are like the two major cases that allow you to bypass that. So with all of that said, let's make our tests atomic. I just showed you how we are able to basically log in without touching the UI. And we are also able to add an item to a cart without touching the UI. And so our atomic test, if it was really atomic, the way it would look would be like this. We would inject a cookie into our application, right? So now that we got the cookie. And so if we're focused on a user can check out test, what is the only place that is relevant? That is, what was the checkout step 1 page, right? So now we can navigate to that page. I didn't log in. I didn't add an item to a cart yet. I simply dropped a cookie, navigated to checkout step 1. And now what's the only other precondition that's missing for a user to be able to check out? That's having an item to a cart. Well, so then now we can replicate that by doing something like this. Doesn't matter whether there's 1 item or 2 items, right? That's not relevant here. What's relevant is having that item. We are dropping it in the cart using local storage. We're refreshing. We now have that item in a cart. And now at this point, Selenium can step in and ensure that a user can successfully check out without retesting all the functionality that we've tested before and know is already working. And so your exercise is to go to end-to-end-test.java and follow instructions in this test method and create an atomic test. And then at the end, of course, you'll run all the tests and make sure that it works. So you're navigating here. You'll remove the ignore because now we care about this test. Oh, you're going to open it up and you're going to follow the instructions in here to make it work. And then at the end, you're going to run a Maven test and run all the end-to-end tests, make sure everything works. Go ahead. We're here for you if you got any questions. And just like before, I'm going to throw up the poll to check who's finished and who's not finished. So I see someone here posted a good question. What would be a feature? The whole checkout process? Yeah, LL. You kind of got it right. It's the feature is whatever it is you are trying to test, right? It's checkout. If you want to test checkout, that's the feature. If you want to test login, that's the feature. If you want to test checkout by navigating 10 pages, that is many features, right? So, I mean, the feature is kind of application relevant, but I think that one thing that should be clear, and let me know if you guys don't agree because my opinions are not always correct. Let me know if you disagree. Well, I think one thing that's kind of clear is whenever we do any checkout process in any application, we are touching multiple features. And if, for example, the login doesn't work, but all of our tests will fail because the login is broken, and our checkout, the most important functionality, will never get tested. While in this situation, if we're bypassing the login in a different mechanism, and then we can still test the checkout regardless of what's going on with the login page. hopefully that makes sense. Again, let me know. Cool, I'm happy to hear it. Let me know. Again, a lot of this stuff is not always clear cut and dry. Many times I'm wrong. I'm a human being. So let me know if you disagree, if you have concerns. Hopefully I can make everything clear for everybody. There's a little hint to everybody. We've done this set before, right above. So you do have a lot of code there. However, you're going to be replacing a lot of those UI interactions with JavaScript executor interactions and a cookie object from Selenium, right? The cookie object will allow us to log in. The JavaScript executor will allow us to inject the JavaScript exactly as I showed you in the browser, but using Selenium. So that's really what it is. And then once you're logged in with the cookie, once you have an object in your cart, the next thing is just bypass all the pages that are irrelevant and get to the starting point of the feature you want to test. One question I've gotten a lot in the past about this, I actually did an entire workshop, well, not an entire, but a huge portion of a workshop around login testing, was, is this applicable to all applications? And kind of, as I mentioned before, no, not all applications log in like this. Many applications log in with cookies. For example, if you look at Amazon, when you log in and then you go to application and check the cookies, you'll see Amazon drops cookies in your browser. So your application may do it like that. There are other applications that have an authentication API. So it's a web request that's performed. And then when the web request is performed, they get back a token. It could be like a JSON web token. A lot of applications written in JavaScript, they'll get back a JSON web token. And then that token is used throughout the user session to be able to make sure that the user can access those appropriate pages. So in that case, instead of dropping a cookie, you would just perform a web request, like using in Java, what's a Java API client? Rest assured, I think. You could use like rest assured, perform that web request, get back your token, and then use that token as part of your session to log in. There are other applications that have like Okta authentication. There are other applications that can do like, there are a number, actually, I'll show you all I did. It's in JavaScript, the other workshop that I did, but there's a number of good lessons from it that you can take a look. It's here in this logging testing section. It's a number of different types. So we tested HTML forms, log in with the HTML forms, log in using JSON web token. I showed you already how to use it, how to do it with a cookie. There are a number of, here's the other numerous ways that we can authenticate, right? SSO, XHR, CSRF, basic auth. There's documentation kind of there if you want to explore that for yourself in the future. I'll drop that link in the chat. someone asked a wonderful question. Anonymous attendee said, in the test, do you think it's fine to have code related with driver cookies, considering we have page objects abstraction layer? That is such a great question. Let me, I don't want to reveal the code. Let me see if I put that in here. I swear I talked about that. I guess I didn't talk about that. That is a great question. And so, no, I don't think it's okay to expose that in the test. The only reason I did it was to simplify this for everybody so that they can see the actual code, right? Instead of having to navigate to a method and see how the method works. I put it in directly in the code so that everybody can see, but you would want to abstract this out, right? So for example, this method right here, executing script of setting an item of cart contents, right? You want to reuse that probably in your application all the time. So you don't want it in just a single test. You want to probably put that in a app object. A lot of times what I end up doing is creating a application level object. And that application level object houses page objects. So you would have something like app.login page.login, right? And so then through that way, you can do app.setState. And so then when you do set state, you can do like set item count, or you can do app.login with cookie. You can do it. That's one way to do it, right? Think of your application controlling all of that. The other way to do it is through a browser object. Think as your browser controlling the application state. So browser.setCookie, browser.setLocal storage. You know, so I don't know which way I prefer. I've done with the app object in the past, and I liked it, but I think either one of those should be okay. Okay, amazing. For individuals that are struggling, I see there's only a few people that are struggling. How can I help? What are you missing to make this work? You can chat me. You can chat me in Slack. I wish you all could talk, but next time we're gonna make this like a live ability where we can just talk with everyone too, not just chat. I think you get a better interaction there. All right, so there's a few people that are struggling. Let's go through the solution. I'm not gonna type it out this time because you guys don't need to see me typing. We're gonna go to here, end-to-end solutions test, okay, in the solution. And we're gonna look at, we're gonna start looking at how this test works. I don't wanna reveal the entire answer, and hopefully that helps the people that we're not able to finish yet. So code as before, starting out with a login page and visiting. And the only reason I put that here was so that we can perform operations on the browser, because you want a browser up. But and actually our page will not, our application doesn't let us access any other pages until we're logged in, right? So we put that in here, fine. Now is the part where we want to perform less browser operations. So the very first thing we're doing is deleting all cookies to clear the state of the application, and clearing local storage. Next, we're using Selenium's cookie object to drop a cookie, session username and standard user. This is exactly the thing that I showed in the console. We're just replicating, sorry, let me see. In the console here, we are just now replicating with Selenium. This is how This is the JavaScript command to make it possible in the browser. And then Selenium wraps that into a cookie object. And then we are just adding that cookie. Next, because we're now logged in, we don't even, we can just navigate directly to the shopping cart page and visiting. And here I am just checking that the application is in the correct state. To be honest, I'm realizing now we probably don't even need to visit the cart to check that there are no items in there. I guess we could. I think this is good. Let me know if you disagree. I'm checking the state of the application before, right, that it has 0 stuff, and then we are using the JavaScript executor to set the cart contents, exactly as we've been doing in the terminal. Refreshing the browser, which is how the UI gets re-rendered. And then we are ensuring that one item was added here. And now that I think about it, I probably wouldn't even do this part. I think I only did it for exemplary purposes here, because if we do this, add an item to a cart through JavaScript, and we check that there's only one item in there, that does exactly that. Why do we even need to check that there were 0 items before? So I'm actually going to even comment that out because I think it's unnecessary. Oh, but we do need a cart. So we'll just do this. Let's see if I don't break anything live. There you go. Hopefully anyone getting closer to finishing this up. Any more yes answers to the poll? And then I'll continue here, hoping everybody's wrapping up. Final step is just navigating to the checkout step 1 page. The checkout step 1 page was where our functionality really starts, right? Right here. And oh, you know what? Yeah. And you know what we could have done really is, let me see here, what would have been better. Oh, you know what? I messed it up. We did need to visit this page to check. Actually, we don't even need to visit this page. Sorry, I messed things up for everybody. That's because I'm like thinking live here. You know what probably would have been better is if I just did this. I did this part up here. Actually, let me cut this out. If I did this, visited step 1 page, drop the item in the cart, ensure that the item is in there, and now proceed with the checkout process. Makes sense? It's by removing really these 3 lines of code altogether. That probably is better. And then just entering personal details and checking out. This is the feature that we really care about. Let's run this and see how that looks. I could have messed stuff up. Let me know if you see I made an error. I can only focus on like one thing, so it's really hard for me to talk and code at the same time. And sometimes I make mistakes. My test passed, which is amazing. So that's a good sign. So user can check out Atomic. So one thing that's kind of interesting to note here right away is you can see already this test was faster. That's because we're bypassing all the extra Selenium commands that we needed to perform. So what is that? I don't even know, can't calculate that percentage, but it's a good amount faster, right? Like, I don't know how many percent, but good amount faster. And that's just a tiny little test. Imagine this applied to an entire test suite, to all of the tests. So you have the one login test that actually performs the UI login, and then all your other tests don't log in and set up state in a faster way. I've actually worked with customers where using this mechanism plus parallelism, we reduced the test suite size by 97%. Like the amount of time it took one test, the entire suite to run was less than the amount of time it used to take one of their tests to run. So that's how powerful this thing can be. So here's what that test looks like. Executed. I should have probably been slower. So here, so here we are. You'll see no typing or interactions there, obviously, because we're just dropping a cookie. So, and you can see automatically we can already access this page. And now we're really where we want to be. The only other thing we want to do is set another precondition of dropping an item in a cart. Boom, there it is. We're not even on the cart page, but we're able to simulate that behavior. And now that's where Selenium comes in and starts executing. And you can see here, these are, by the way, all of the commands that Selenium executes. I find a lot of us never having done execution in a cloud grid environment, which is actually, I think, mandatory nowadays to be able to run and scale fast enough with our test automation. Every single Selenium command is a web request. So you can see here, that's what happens. So the more of these that we have, that's how our tests become really slow, but also unstable. And so this atomic testing kind of thing, that's the whole idea behind it. We're eliminating as many UI interactions as we can, isolating the behavior that we want, and then only using the UI there. And so, for example, here's how a cookie is set, right? You can see a web request for a cookie. Let's see here, what else is important? Here's our JavaScript cart contents command. You can also see how fast they are, right? So for example, this JavaScript command is really quick. 0.1 second, oh no, yeah, 0.1 second, half a second from here to here. Versus like some Selenium commands like this one, 0.25 seconds. I guess not too bad. Cool. Let's see where we at. Questions or concerns about this process? I usually get a lot of questions about this because it's kind of new to a lot of us. Let me see. I see some in the Q&A. Hello, Wen. I'm going to answer some questions here. Chandra asks, when we have a test, which we can go all the way to checkout, then why can't we delete the previous test if we think it's duplicate code? This way, we are still writing a test. A normal end user would browse our site rather than playing around with cooking the test. Test is faster, maybe by 64% using it. Thanks, Chandra, for doing the calculation. 64% faster. Great. Chandra, I didn't fully understand. So you're saying when we have test code, which will go all the way to checkout, then why can't we delete the previous test? Oh, are you saying that basically, all right, so you're saying that instead of doing this, why can't we just do this? A user can check out which tests all of the features, right? So going from the beginning to the end and testing things, everything at once. Well, that is a really bad idea for numerous reasons. Number one, this test is really fast, right? My application is really small. If you have a big application and you need to go through the entire application and test everything, that might take dozens of minutes, maybe even hours, right? And who can even guarantee, can you even guarantee that you've tested all of the features? I don't know. That's really hard, number one. Number two, if along the way your test fails on adding an item to a cart, or not able to locate an element for any reason, or you weren't able to synchronize correctly, now your entire test fails and all of the features afterwards don't get tested, and you have no idea at the state of their quality. And then the last piece that is bad about end-to-end, long end-to-end tests is that you're not going to be able to run in parallel. And so instead of running horizontally, meaning that where we were actually going to talk about this towards the end, we were going to make all of our tests run in parallel. You're going to see an insane speed performance improvement from running our tests in parallel and horizontally instead of having one test that is vertical, because the longer your test becomes, your entire test suite runtime will be as slow as your slowest test. So if you have a test that's 45 minutes long, your entire test suite will never run faster than 45 minutes. However, if we have 45 one-minute tests, we can run all of those in parallel, and our entire test suite will run in a single minute, even though it's 45 tests. And so the power of that is insane. You'll get a little preview of the parallelization at the end when we implement parallelization, but those are the reasons why we never ever want to have an end-to-end test that navigates from screen to screen to screen and does all the testing at once. Let me know if something doesn't make sense. Cool. Yeah, Chandra, amazing question. Thank you so much for asking it again. I hope that when we get to the parallelization part, you'll see the massive win that we get from having a ton of tiny tests running in parallel. And then if not, let me know if you still don't agree with me. So someone says, what your look on UI API tests together in one framework for doing it similar? Yeah, it's an amazing idea. I strongly encourage it, anonymous attendee, to combine UI and API testing. With the UI and API testing, your tests become way faster and way more stable. In fact, when I was talking about helping a customer decrease their test suite runtime by 97%, that was thanks to this atomic tests pattern. We had a bunch of little tests doing UI testing, a bunch doing API testing, and all of them running in parallel. And that was the only way to make that possible. Oh, and by the way, when we decreased 97% by 97%, we actually increased their test coverage because it ran on more mobile devices than before. So it was even more test cases, but running in only 3% of the time that they used to. And yeah, it was using that combination. All right, cool. Let me see here. Got I answered this one, just tackling all the questions. So that one. Cool. All right, wonderful. Let's review our test coverage and see what we accomplished with all of these tests. So let me edit this. So a login page renders. We continue to do that part. Valid user can log in. Everything's okay. User can check out with the product. We did that. Selenium Sauce Labs. I'll add in here cookie injection and JavaScript injection. It's not really, I wouldn't call it, technologies, but let's just add that there just so we keep in mind how we were able to accomplish that. So really now, if this wasn't a workshop and we were really writing a production suite, I would totally just remove this test. I mean, I'd keep the name, but I'd get rid of this test and I would only use this one from this point forward. All right, so next we have to figure out how we are going to ensure that our 3 pages, our login page, products page, and cart page, look as expected on Chrome and on Safari on the most popular resolutions. And we are going to do that in the next section. Let me see how we're doing on time here. Awesome. We are doing great on time. So everyone, let's take a 10-minute break until it's 12. Let's call it 12:38. until 12:48 Eastern time. So in 10 minutes, let's take a quick break, grab lunch or, restroom or whatever. And we'll come back at 12:48 Eastern time to continue improving our test coverage. I'll put on some nice music for everyone to chill to in the meantime. This is my dog Mia. She wanted to say hi, so I brought her along. She's the best coder out of all of us. She's a Java expert. She's yawning because she's bored. Bored with this workshop. She's like, this is so easy, Nikolai. I do this in my sleep. Say hi, Mia. Susie says hi. Still waiting a few minutes, like 2 minutes. But I do see a wonderful question here from Chandra. He says that he understands the explanation about using cookies in JavaScript to make atomic and faster. However, this would mean that we would need to know exactly how the app works in the back end. Like, yeah, the tokens and the cookies and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's right. As a tester, we do need to understand how our application works so that we can provide the best service to our employer, right? It's like, yeah, we can do testing of our application in like Qtp and VB script, for example. I don't even know if those technologies still exist. I'm just going back to my 2008 days, which, by the way, those are horrible technologies. We can do testing with that, but are we being a good asset to our employer and by not using better technologies such as Selenium and making our code easier to maintain, the automation process better? So it's, of course, it depends on your preference. How deeply do you want to go? But I believe that if we're working at an employer and we're making money, we should do the best job that we can to ensure that our application is of top quality. And so, yeah, that does involve learning how the application works and getting inside, but it also makes us better too as test engineers and opens you up to more job opportunities if you want to look at it from a job career perspective. Cool. Oh, awesome. It's 12:48. Hopefully everyone had a nice little break. I just wanted to remind everyone that we are here to help and raise money for a wonderful cause. That cause is code.org. And I'm not asking anything for my time here. And if you are enjoying this workshop and you feel it's of value, please donate something to this URL here. I'm going to drop it in the chat and drop it in the Slack. Anything $5, $10, whatever you feel is appropriate is totally cool. We're just coming together again to help computer science education for K-12 individuals, enabling more people to do computer science so that the world can get better, right? I'm sure we all know that technology and programming and web development is the future. Everything code runs the entire world. So it doesn't make sense that the more there are of us coding, the better and faster we can get to an amazing world of technology. So yeah, anything you want, just feel free to donate. So far, we've raised $250, which is awesome. And Sauce Labs will donate up to $2,500 on our donation. So thanks for everyone that has donated, and thank you all for your time. All right, cool. Let's move on here. And let me kill this. Cool. So in the next section, remember we looked at our requirements, which were how do we ensure that pages look as we want them to look on different browsers and resolutions. And in order to make that possible, we use visual testing. And so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to use visual testing to massively increase browser coverage, drastically decrease the code that we need to maintain, and drastically increase test suite stability. Visual testing. So in this section, we are going to learn what is visual testing and how to implement a visual test. Out of curiosity, in the Zoom chat, who here has done visual testing? Drop a yay or nay in the chat. I'm just curious. Okay, getting a few no's, getting a bunch of no's, which is totally typical. That's what I find in like all of these workshops and interactions that I have. Not a small portion of the community has worked with visual testing. And I find that exciting because it means that I can show you all a powerful way to test our applications. And as I said, get all of those amazing benefits. So let's proceed here. The mostly no's looks like in terms of that. So I'm glad most people, from what I could tell, at least from the chat, most people have not done visual testing. So let me just double check here, chat. Yeah, most people have not done it. So let's quickly go over about what it is and how it works. So visual end-to-end testing. Visual end-to-end testing is based around the idea that human eyes can miss critical information, right? We go into a testing process searching for one thing while potentially not seeing other things. The other type of situation is where we don't test stuff at all, right? Whether we don't have time to test it, or maybe we don't even think to test it. And so I've got some examples of visual errors happening in real life, and I think that will give you a great idea of the type of errors that can occur. So this is a pretty cool story. You can read it. I'll just quickly summarize that in Moscow in 1983, this guy Petrov, he had like a UI that displayed information about incoming missile attacks. And he started getting information from the system that there was an incoming missile attack from United States. And so he had the choice to make to launch nukes back at us or to not, right? And so despite the system telling him to do it, thank God, he decided not to launch nukes back at us. He realized that it was an error, and so a nuclear holocaust was averted. So that's kind of one bug, very extreme bug, but something that can be caught and prevented with a visual test. Here is another less extreme example, but very costly. On the Southwest Airlines website, we can see here how this continue button is covered up by this text. The reason it's covered up by this text is a rendering problem. And so this application didn't get rendered well, and it covered up this continue button. And Southwest makes $2.5 million per hour from their website. So you can imagine that even if this was up for a very short period of time, it cost Southwest a lot of money for users to not be able to buy their flights. An even less extreme example, but still relevant, is my own website. When I was creating it on a nice 1080p resolution monitor. And so to me, everything looked great until my website was rendered on a smaller resolution, right? Not everybody has a 1080p monitor. Maybe you're looking at my website on your laptop, on your 13-inch laptop, on your 15-inch laptop, and the resolution is going to be the viewport size is going to be much smaller. And so in that case, you can see how stuff started overlapping. Right here, it wasn't very clear where we are, and it just, the search icon moved down. There were more errors below it. And unfortunately, my website doesn't make $2.5 million an hour, but it just doesn't look professional. And especially this being a quality assurance blog, probably the confidence in my skills was drastically degraded, right? So preventing such bugs is what we use visual end-to-end testing for. Visual end-to-end testing is really kind of just a combination of functional and manual testing. It's basically ensuring that our application looks as it's supposed to look, as we want it to look, as per the requirements on whatever browser operating system resolution that we want, right? It could be a very important website that gets a lot of traffic all the time on many popular browsers and resolutions. And so then we maybe need to ensure that it looks good on all of those, or it may be just like one page. It may be just a home page that gets thousands of users every single day looking at it, and we want to ensure that that home page looks good in our application. So let me actually show you all code and how to make this possible, and then everyone will get a better picture. So that was that. We already talked about test coverage. And so the very first thing that we're going to do is tackle these three requirements, making sure that these 3 pages look as expected on most popular resolution. And by the way, the most popular resolution you can get by doing like a Google search. I just did a Google search of browser resolution popularity. Of course, if it's your application, maybe you don't care about the most popular screen resolution. Maybe most of your users are coming in on a mobile device. And so now you need to target a mobile device resolution. So that depends. We can see here, this looks like this 1080p resolution is the most popular. Okay. So that is the most popular resolution for this. So now is your challenge to go do this exercise, go to visualtest.java and follow instructions there to implement the visual test. Just to show everybody, you're going to visualtest.java and then you're following the instructions to implement the tests. And as always, I'm going to put a poll up to ensure that let me know if you finished or haven't finished yet. So just one thing to point to you. Oh, I didn't put a 1080p resolution here. I should have. That would be the most popular one. So maybe that's one thing, it keeps updating over time, right? Maybe when I got this, this was the most popular resolution, or maybe I even mistyped and put in the wrong one here. Regardless, you can put in the most popular one if you want, or just pretend that this is the most popular. And then just follow instructions. A bunch of the code here is really set up for you because the setup is not so important, and I can go over it in a moment to describe what it does. But actually, let me go over it now to explain exactly what's happening here. Sorry about that. So just setting up a few variables up here in our visual test. Okay, so here, unfortunately, sauce bindings doesn't currently support visual end-to-end testing. And so you have to do the old way of instantiating a remote session, which is using mutable capabilities. You can see here we're setting up browser options, right? We're passing in a browser name, browser version platform. Here we're setting up the Sauce Labs capabilities. You don't need to change any of the code here. It'll work automatically. And then finally, this is the new piece. This is being able to run on Screener IO. Actually, let me see here. This being able to run on Screener IO, and this is how you set that up. The project name corresponds to basically your application name. So I'm assuming most of you work on one application, so you would probably just put that in here. The viewport size corresponds to the viewport size. And I put here fail on new states false because I use this as a demo. So I don't want my tests to fail every time they're initially ran. And I'll show you exactly what that means when we actually run it. And then we just pass that object into our browser options. And then start a new session by pointing to this URL here. You can see that, yes, it is a different hub than you typically use for Sauce Labs or Browser Stack or whatever, or any Selenium grid. You have to point it to this hub. And then you're going to perform the visual flow. And that's one other thing that I should have mentioned is that to perform a visual flow, the best thing to do, this is actually a case where it's okay to go screen to screen to screen, is to open up our application, navigate page by page, and take snapshots to ensure that our application looks correct. And let me actually show you what the end result would look like, because I know a lot of people aren't familiar with visual testing. So visual solution here. So I'm going to run it for you all here. We'll do Maven test, visual solution, is a visual solution test. I'm going to run this and you'll see what that looks like. So it's going to start executing. And also, I know a lot of people don't have the API key, which will make life painful. So that's running. Let's go to Screener. That's where the results come in. Okay. So here's the Screener dashboard. Over here, this is the project name. So you can see that this is the string that we passed in. I'm calling it Sauce Demo Java. And this is what is being executed in here. So anytime you're capturing snapshots, they will go into this location. Okay. If we click here, you can see that there's currently a build running. And so far, the results that have come in is that there are 5 snapshots that I have previously accepted as baseline, and there is one that changed. And let me do one thing just to show you guys one thing that's better. I'm just going to change this to something new. I'm going to call this Sauce Demo Java. Let's call it 2, for example. And let me rerun this actually. I just want to show you guys a new state of the snapshots. So every snapshot starts in a new state because once a snapshot is captured, what the application wants to know is this acceptable to us? That's the one manual portion of visual testing that always has to happen, because no algorithm can know if the application is in a valid state or not. And so here you can see Saul's demo Java 2 project running. Give it a second to finish. And once it finishes, we'll handle it. Let's see here. So it's running one. Okay, beautiful. So now you see new states coming in. What does that mean? It means that we've navigated each of the pages and have captured a snapshot, and our visual testing tool doesn't know what to do with these snapshots. Here's what those snapshots look like. Here's our login page on 1080p. So this part is our test method that we passed in when we take a snapshot. Okay. That take snapshot is just a JavaScript executor command. You can see it executes that. And it's simply passing in my page object name, right, which is coming in from whatever page object I have. And then the init part, that's how we get the 1080p, because I know this is a 1080p resolution. That's how those two are coming in. But look at the snapshot. So it's now for us to decide, is this acceptable to us? Does everything here look correct? Yes, it does. I don't see any bugs here, so it looks good. I'm going to accept it as a baseline. What this means is that now every future iteration of that exact test case will check against this baseline, and if there are any visual differences, it will point those out and let us decide, what do we want to do? Do we want to report this as a bug, or do we want to update our baseline because our requirements have changed? Here's another example. So there's our login page. Here's our products page. Check it out. How does this look to everybody? It looks great to me. I don't see any visual errors, and it looks good. I'm going to accept it. Next, shopping cart page. Shopping cart page also looks great. Nothing wrong here. I'm also going to accept it. So now all of those are baselines, and any future iterations will show us the differences. What happens if there are actually differences? Unfortunately, I don't have any more there. Let me see where I have some differences. Some good differences. Let's see. This one is good. So here's what happens if there's differences. By the way, check out how fast these visual snapshots executed. Under 2 minutes, 254 snapshots captured, 8 times parallelism. That's not only the power of parallelism, but also power of visual snapshots is they're super fast and super stable. So let's look at what has changed. Here's what changes look like. It says that here our account on this resolution has changed. Let's see what's happened here. So we can see here that before this button was here, now it's here. In fact, if we expand this, Screener tells us exactly what has happened. So we had one layout change where there was a shift of the element, and we also had a style change. So we can actually ignore these changes if, for example, let's say you have a header that has like a sale or a countdown timer or a date that you want to ignore. You can ignore this either through the UI and say, I don't care about this change, and in the future, don't notify me about these changes. Or you can do it through code as well by specifying a locator that you want to ignore, and then when the test runs, it's not gonna show you a change in that locator. So if this is acceptable, we would accept this change, and this will be a new baseline. If it's not acceptable, we go back to the developer and say, hey, there's a bug. For some reason, the button has shifted. Let's fix it. Let's look at another example. Here's another example of an API key button. Here's another example. You can see how this button simply changed colors, and this text has changed, right? So it went from 1x parallelism to 2x parallelism. So this would be a wonderful thing to actually ignore for us, because we don't care that the text in there is changing, right? So we could click here and ignore it. And now our application is not going to complain about this anymore. We can also undo ignore. And also it's saying that there's been a style change, that the background color has changed of this link element. There's also a history of everything that's happened to this component over time. You can see here's the component being captured at different states. And everything that's happened to it. At this point, it was accepted by me. And then afterwards, it's just been running. And then one final change here. This one is cool to see, because here we used to have this header, and now we no longer have this header. So what's interesting here, right? Imagine our entire application has shifted up because there's no longer this header. However, only this header was identified as being deleted. You can see this div was deleted. And that's one of the very cool things about Screener, is it uses a visual hybrid diff to let us know that a change has occurred, but it doesn't highlight the entire application and say the entire application has changed, because it knows that the only thing that's changed was this element, even though everything has shifted up. So it's kind of smart like that. What I found with visual tests, whether it's with Screener or really any other technology, I've used multiple technologies in the past, visual testing is extremely stable and very rarely gives you false positives in terms of like failures. I found that visual testing can give you false positives if your application has like dynamic rendering components. Maybe you have a spinner, or maybe your application lazy loads certain portions. If you don't handle those correctly, like you don't wait for the spinner to disappear before capturing the snapshot, or you don't lazy load your page first before capturing the snapshot, that's where you'll get errors and you'll get weird snapshots, because not everything is loaded and it won't be in the right state. So just make sure that your application is in a rendered state before capturing the snapshot. I'll even show you like an example of lazy loading. Like if you go to my website, so you'll see here, if as I scroll, you'll see stuff loading in, like here. See how it like loads in? If I didn't capture this, if I didn't make this load first, it would capture this as like blanks or like partial loading. And so just keep that in mind. Let me see. I think I've explained visual testing to you all pretty well. Looks like more than 50% of the people have been successful. I see a number of questions. Ask me any questions you may or may not have.
Yeah, Nikolai, there's one from Chandra in the Q&A. Basically around stuff like A/B testing. Can you have multiple baselines for visual? And would you be able to approve either of them? Like what would be the best practice for using visual in that way?
Hey, yeah, thanks, Chris. You don't want multiple baselines of a snapshot. Oh, hold on. Let me not. So you don't want multiple baselines of a snapshot, because if you think of your page, it only has a single state that is correct. It can't have two states that are correct. I understand your point about A/B testing, but one of them is A and the other is B, and each one of those is its own baseline. So no, you can't have multiple baselines, and you also don't want to have multiple baselines. You just want to create a new baseline for each iteration of that page. So again, A, you would have snapshot of A, you would have a snapshot of B. Make sure they look as they're supposed to look, and that's it. They'll have their own validations. Does that make sense, Chandra? Let me see. What is it? What is API virtualization based on different user types? Sometimes website can hide show content. How does visual testing based on different user types can hide show content? Chandra, it's important to figure out what you want your visual state of the application to look like at any point. If there are multiple users that are creating multiple states over your application, and each one of those states is very relevant to the business, well, that's one thing I want to preface here. I wouldn't do visual testing for all of the pages, right? Like, I mean, for example, the contact us page, right, of a application. Let's say you have an application that gets 1 million users a month, and then your contact us page is receiving 5 users per month. I would ask, do you really need to spend time to test that contact us page, which is such a small percentage versus the home page? Because then you can use that time to focus your efforts elsewhere. So it's important to determine first what is business critical and what is important to test. Once we've determined that, if there are numerous users creating numerous states of the application and we deem each one of those important, then we need to capture each one of those is its own baseline. So you're going to have, as you said, an institutional user, you're going to have a retail user. You need to be going in as each one of those users and capturing a snapshot of that page in that state as its own. And then you're going to be comparing those over time, right? Because let's say something broke in the institutional user logic. For whatever reason, when the institutional user logs in, whatever you wanted to see there is not there. And so now that visual test will fail. You'll report it as a bug, but the retail user will continue to pass because that logic is working. Let me know if something doesn't make sense. And you will actually get a really good view of this as we kind of move through more visual testing. Oh, someone asked here about API virtualization simulation services I'd recommend. To be honest, I don't know too many services, or at least I haven't used many API virtualization services myself. So unfortunately, I don't know a good answer to that one. Let me see here. Cool, I got you guys talking and excited about this, really happy. Let's see what's going on here. Q&A. Yeah, Chandra, you can capture as many snapshots as you want of the tool. So it's all about structuring here, structuring your test. So for example, okay, the way a snapshot is considered unique, which this is a really great conversation. The way a snapshot is considered unique is by a combination of 5 parameters: the browser name, browser version, and the platform, the viewport size, and the test name, which is right there. So those 5 parameters, if you change any one of those, oh, and also branch, but don't worry about branches. It's don't even look or think about branching. It's a super confusing thing that I think causes more harm than good. But those 5 parameters, if you change any one of them, that's a brand new snapshot. So as you saw me in my demo, I changed project name and that went into totally new snapshots. But if, and by the way, here, let's do that. I'll show you. We'll go into here. Oh, sorry, just answering questions here. If I go into here, where in our sauce demo Java 2, we have 3 accepted, right? I've accepted 3 of these baselines. If I change this from 1080p to call it, you know, 12p. Okay. And we're going to run this again. It's going to create entirely brand new snapshots. So it's how you structure it. So if you have users creating multiple states, the way I would structure this is you obviously are going to have your login page where you're logging in. And I don't know if that triggers a brand new state for a user. If that's the case, I would just log in with each user and then capture the appropriate snapshot. And in fact, in that case, I might even have separate visual flows for each user. Here I put all my pages into a single flow just because it's super easy. But if now there's different users creating different states, I might have a separate test for that. And then with one user, log in with an institutional user and another one with a retail user. And then those will create separate snapshots because you'll be setting a totally separate init. You'll say institutional user or login user. The other thing that you can do is data drive that test, all the same pages, different logins. And you're actually going to see that in a little bit, how we do that for Safari and Chrome. And so then you can just change the data-driven parameters. But let me see what I was showing here. So see how that generated totally brand new snapshots, even though everything is exactly the same. The only thing that I changed was this guy. So it's again how you structure the test code to reflect what you want to see. And there's no right or wrong answer there. It's what do you want to see in the dashboard? Let me see if I have a better, more complicated example of a dashboard. Java. No, I don't know. I actually, yeah, the example I showed was great. Let me see here. Just to show you what an example of what something can look like. Where was screener component? So check this out. 254 changes, right? So if I view the accepted ones, this is what the organization looks like, right? So they're organized by everything is on 1024 Chrome, and this is account, here's activity. So they're kind of like grouped based on functionality. But for you, it might be grouped by user. You might have all the same pages, but for an institutional user. Here you might have a, what you call it, the retail user. And then you'll have all the same pages, but captured for a retail user. That's one way to see it. Yeah, these tools taking more and more efforts. Yeah, absolutely. This visual testing is like one of the most powerful techniques of testing that most people are still not using. And that's why I'm like super excited to be here and sharing this with you all, because it's insanely powerful. But let me stop talking about it and we can see it actually in action. Cool, we got through the questions. Cool, so with all of that said, how do we do the same exact thing in Safari? Here's another exercise for you. Go to this guy here, follow the instructions, and then you're gonna run this command and everything should work for you. Unless you don't have a screener API key. Yeah. So give that a shot, and then we'll talk about it in a moment. And I am actually going to just run this command and show you the output without showing you the exercise. So you are navigating to this data-driven tests and making this work. And I'm going to go navigate to the solution. I don't even need to navigate to the solution. I'm just going to run it. It's visual data-driven. Visual data-driven. Visual. Oh no, I do want a solution. So here we go. I'm just going to run this for you all to show you the output. but you go ahead and keep working on the exercise. Should be relatively quick. I'm going to throw up here another poll of whether you were able to finish it or not. Oh, unfortunately, I don't have a second poll for data-driven testing. I forgot about that. Let me see if I can like delete the results. I can't. Oh, well, just feel free to drop in the chat when you are finished. So let's go take a look at Screener. Here's our source demo Java project. Logs of what's running. Give it a little time. Oh, one other thing I should have shown you all while that runs is what that actually looks like when the tests are being executed. I mean, I'm sure you all can figure it out from the code, but it's always nice to see it live too, right? Oh, sorry. So here's an error. Let's do this one. Let's see if this is. So here's a good one. So this is our visual flow, right? We see the command, and this is all it does. It is going to hit page by page and capture snapshots in the appropriate resolution, right? So it's gone to that page. Obviously, it needs to log in. You know what I realized? What would have been even better was if we logged in with our cookies there, reusing that functionality. Here, it's adding an item to a cart, capturing a snapshot. So just some kind of visual testing strategy for you all. As I mentioned, the best thing to do is to just go page by page with one test and capture all the pages that you want to check for visual quality in a single test, assuming that what's important to you are different browsers and resolutions, which for most of us with web applications being responsive, a lot of times that's the priority. But there are other ways to structure it. I've had customers that also have a locale difference, right? Maybe their application not only has a bunch of pages that are important in different resolutions, but now they are also important in English, Spanish, French, right? Because they're targeting multiple countries. So that's another dimension to add to this. You can have all the pages on multiple browsers and operating resolutions on multiple locales. So it's like tons of snapshots. Let's go back here. Cool. So here is our project. We see now that we have 5 accepted and 1 changed. So 6 snapshots, right? What does that map to? It maps to our requirements, our visual requirements. We have 3 pages for Chrome, 3 pages for Safari. I made this just simple, just for us to follow, but you can imagine we might want to capture snapshots of all of our pages for this application. And what's changed? Let's take a look. I actually left this in there to show you all what a previous iteration of this card page looked like. So you can see here's our card page. This is on Safari, right? You can see that up here. This is what it previously looked like. And look what it looks like now, because we've added an item to the cart in our flow. It has this and this that was added. So that's the question is, do we want to set this as a baseline and this looks good, or do we want to keep the original baseline? You know what might be another potential question is keeping this as its own baseline, an empty state shopping cart page, and then maybe you want the shopping cart page with a element in a cart, right? And so those are two different baselines that you might want to capture to make sure that everything looks good. And then the other thing that visual testing is so powerful here, what we had to do in the past, right? If you wanted to ensure that a user can add an item to a cart correctly, you might need to add an item to a cart and then check this counter, right? We actually did that ourselves in our functional test. But now we can add an item to a cart and then just capture the snapshot. And not only do we make sure that there's the correct counter in our cart, we capture the entire page and see everything that is potentially wrong with it, like this item being there or not being there, you know? And so with one single snapshot command, we can do like hundreds or thousands of validations at the same time. And I'm not gonna do anything with this change just because I want it to be in a change state for the future. Oh, here's a history too, if you want to see what the history looked like. So you can see the entire history. At some point, it was accepted by me somewhere or not. I might have automatically accepted it through code. You can also reject. If you reject, it will not set it as a baseline. So Chandra makes a comment about the BDD tests having a lot of noise code maintenance, but sometimes going back to the basics and keeping the framework simple with easy tools might be a way forward. Yeah, totally agree with you, Chandra. That is the same thing that I find working with customers all over the world is it's literally exactly as you said, BDD is a lot of noise with little added value. I don't know if anyone else agrees, disagrees, had different experiences. I'm always happy to hear it. Oh, and curious, who here, has anyone here been able to do the exercise, visual data-driven test exercise? It should have been relatively easy. I kind of set you up for most of it. It was really just changing a few things, a few strings to fields. Let's go look in the chat. How are we doing on time? We're doing pretty good on time. I'm actually just gonna go get through this. I wanna leave time for the last two sections. So here's what the data-driven solution looks like. This is the power of JUnit 4 with Maven. We are able to do data-driven testing with that combination. So adding this annotation at the top makes this a data-driven test. These parameters, before, you remember, before they were fields, now we're just adding these annotations at the top and giving each one of them an index. Okay, so index 0, index 1, 2, and so on. How does this relate? Is we have this object here of data. This is how we're going to be able to data drive our test code. Each one of these rows means a brand new test method, and each of these index corresponds to index in our parameter, right? So for example, this Chrome string corresponds to our zeroth key, which is browser name. Windows 10 here corresponds to our second key, which is platform. And so that's how we can access these values through here. You can have tons of rows. I only put 2 here because we only have 2 requirements to meet, but you can easily imagine how we can multiply this to run on many resolutions. We can make it mobile by, instead of having desktop resolutions, we can have mobile resolutions as well, right? iPhone and Android phones, those are super critical for a web application as well. And so this, of course, I I hard coded it here in the test class because I feel it's appropriate and relevant to what we are trying to do. If for whatever reason, your data for here needs to be dynamically updated, maybe through an external file, you can of course read it from an XML, a CSV, whatever you need as well. But again, hard coding here is appropriate. This is set up like normal, but now instead we're simply reading from our fields, right? And our fields will access the data in here. So again, each one of these rows will be a brand new test method. So what that means is that we're going to have two tests that are executing. One test will run on this combination, another test will run on this combination. Here are the fields that are setting that. Here's the viewport size being set dynamically. And finally, our init, we are calling resolution name. And so if we run this, it'll run two tests. I'm going to run it. Actually, I don't even need to run it. I've run it for you before. So you can see it's executed two tests with one failure. The failure here was right here. If we scroll up, it says that we expected null, but had one visual regression found. That's because here, look at our assertion. Our assertion is checking, we're hitting this get visual results. It's just a JavaScript executor from screener that calls this command, and that returns a map of results. We use those results to read the message, and that message will tell us all of the variations. And so when we ran our test, that's exactly what we saw here together. We had 6 total snapshots, but one had changed. And so because that one had changed, our test failed. And so it tells us that, hey, there's something we need to do with this test because there was a single change. And then all the rest of the code remains exactly the same. Let me run this just so everyone can see again, because I explained it now. So it's just going to execute two tests, one test and then another test. Let's take a look here. One thing I do want you to notice, which is kind of in preparation for the next section, is how long all of this has taken. It takes quite a little bit to go through and capture all the snapshots and do it 2 times. And so we're going to speed that up a lot in the future. No need to let it finish running. Any questions on that? I know it was a new technology for many people. I know I did a lot of stuff. Not only did I introduce you to visual testing, I also even showed you cross-browser parallelization. So any questions there? By the way, when we were talking about different situations, if you don't feel as though it's important for your business to have this coverage for your web application, but instead you want to do an institutional user and a what did you call it? A retail user, you can do that, right? You can data drive your test to only have those 2 parameters, right? And then be passing maybe you're passing in a username and an access key. Username and a password here instead of all of this. You can do it like that. You can even add more parameters here so that you capture every combination that you want in every single test, and each one of those will come through as its own snapshot. You can do it like that. But I did just want to correlate kind of the snapshots here to everything. So you can see resolution. This is generated for us automatically. Here's the init. This is the value coming from the init. That's this guy right here. Okay. Corresponding to resolution name, and that's I'm setting it in the init. What else? This is the same thing from the init, and here's the test name that's coming in from take snapshot method, which I wrapped, which is simply that, and getting the page object name. So every one of my this is in my abstract page object, but all of my child page objects obviously will pass this in. And that's kind of it. That's how everything correlates to here. Let me see what we got here. Any questions? Is anyone noticing some redundancy in our testing in terms of visual testing and functional testing? Let me know in the chat, like, what do you think? Did we just introduce some redundancy? We didn't? What do you think of visual testing in general? I think everybody's really asleep and just waiting to get that Sauce Labs backpack. Next time, I'm gonna make the Sauce Labs backpacks contingent on good participation. How about that? No, I'm joking, but I do love to interact with you guys and girls. Okay, I don't see any interaction. So I guess let me just continue powering through here. We got about 20 minutes. So we obviously introduced some redundancy, right? For example, this right here, making sure that our login page looks as expected on Chrome in most popular resolution. It does exactly the same thing as this, right? It's ensuring that our application is rendering. So we can actually no longer even need this test, right? We can come to our test suite of our end-to-end tests. Here, I'm going to be in the solutions. We can come to our end-to-end test and we can totally remove this test, because why do we need it? We're already doing this with a visual test, but not only are we ensuring that our application renders, we also ensure that it looks correct. So let's update this. Login page renders, technologies. I'm going to do technologies comments like this. Login page renders, screener, and it's no longer this kind of test. It's a visual end-to-end test. That's how we're accomplishing that. Interestingly, can we do the same thing with a valid user can log in? We definitely can, right? We can log in with a user and then capture the snapshot of the next page and ensure that a user was successfully logged in too, right? Instead of checking for an existence of an element, we can check for the entire rendering of a page. So that's one potential redundancy to think about as well, whether we just eliminate this test altogether, the functional test, and just keep the visual test. It's possible. You know, I think it's realistic to think about that. And then, of course, we are doing all of this now. This is a visual end-to-end. And we did this with screener, sauce, Selenium. And I'm just going to paste this in for here, 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 and here. Cool. All right. Let's take a look. Yeah, we covered all of this with visual end-to-end. And this will leave alone. Awesome. So, just a quick summary is that hopefully with that, and let me know if you don't agree, if something I didn't connect the dots somewhere, but hopefully you saw how visual end-to-end testing is a simple and efficient way to test our web applications cross-platform. It can actually, as I said, even replace a lot of our functional tests that we used to do. I actually still have customers on a regular basis that will, I actually just had a customer, I analyzed their test code. they open up a page and check for hundreds of elements. I think it was like multiple minutes were spent checking for hundreds of elements on one page. And that can actually be overcome with a single snapshot. One line of code, after you, of course, configure the correct hub, one line of code could have done all the things that hundreds lines of code did, and captured the entire state of the page, and whatever elements they were checking for, of course, they would be captured in that snapshot. So keep that in mind. And the final piece of this is we're going to make our test suite extremely fast using parallel execution. So here, you'll learn how to create ridiculously fast tests and how to implement parallelization. It's extremely easy. I put this, by the way, while I'm talking here, give this command a run, okay? Run this command is going to execute all the tests in the solutions. Why I chose the solutions, because I know those work and I don't know the state of your current exercises. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. And so I'm running the solutions, which should be identical to your exercises, and see how long it takes to run without parallelization, okay? While I'm talking here. So one quote that I put here, and I strongly believe that nowadays in today's fast moving world with fast moving applications, it's pretty much impossible to succeed without parallelization in our test code, because without parallelization, the bottleneck for our testing is how long the test suite takes. Depends on your organization. Some organizations, it's acceptable to take 24 hours. For me personally, I want every build, that means build the code, test the code, and deploy in under 10 minutes. So that's my requirement for my testing cycle. And so the more tests that we add, obviously, the bigger our test suite gets and the slower it becomes. And so one of the best ways to combat that is, instead of stacking tests vertically, we turn them horizontally and just run them in parallel. That's exactly what I was talking about, how it's better to have 50 1-minute tests instead of one 50-minute test. Because if we have 50 1-minute tests, we can run in 50 threads and our entire test suite will take a minute. While if we have a single 50-minute test, it'll take 50 minutes to execute, because the test has to finish. So when I ran this, just to save you all time, okay, for this little tiny suite that we created, which was 9 tests, okay, 8 tests execute, 1 failure. The 1 failure, of course, is coming from the visual test, which I left. It took 4 minutes and 1 second, okay? That's approximately 30 seconds per test at 8 tests. The problem with this approach that I have a question here, but we'll just tackle, is that it's, again, the more tests we have, the more this time is going to increase. There's no way around it except with parallelization. And so now go ahead and implement parallelization in your test code. It's super easy. Just copy and paste this in your POM XML as at the same levels of dependencies node. And then you're going to rerun the same command as before. Okay, I'm going to give you guys like 2 minutes to do that. It's super easy. And in fact, we can do it together. I'm going to go super slow and we'll do it together and I'll run it. Okay. So we're going to come here. We're going to go to our POM XML. And this is possible because we're using JUnit and Maven. Okay. For example, JUnit is thread safe, so it's possible. If you wanted to do the same thing with TestNG, it's not possible. TestNG is not thread safe, so you would need to write extra code. I actually cover that in depth in a tutorial, but I just wanted to let you know that this is possible because of the technology choices that we made here. So we're going to come here at the same levels of dependency node. We're going to paste in our build stuff. I don't know why is it in red? Element build not allowed here. Oh, I think I meant there because, sorry, wrong place. It's at the dependencies, not dependency, because it's not a, okay. So the same level is here, adding this in. Okay, let me just quickly explain it. It's using Maven Surefire plugin. Here we're saying we want to run everything in parallel. This includes test methods and test classes. You can run it at the test class level. You can run it at the test method level. We're saying just run it all in parallel. Okay. I'm setting my maximum thread count to 100 here because in my sauce labs, I have 100 sessions that I can execute in parallel. Let me show you that. So look at my usage. I have 100 sessions that I can run in parallel. Now, I don't know if my machine can run 100 sessions in parallel at the same time, but I can definitely tell you it's close. I definitely have ran like 75 tests in parallel just on my machine. So my machine starting the test and executing in Sauce Labs, I've seen 75 tests running in parallel. If this is in a CI/CD environment, it's even easier because you can make your CI server much more powerful, or you can use multiple CI servers to run many threads in parallel at the same time. So anyway, I just set this to the maximum amount because if I do 110, I'm not going to get 10 extra threads to run in parallel from Sauce Labs because I don't have that available. This just said, yeah, use it unlimited to true, and then we don't need to redirect output to anywhere. We're going to rerun our tests with this enabled. Let that run. We can look here. So that was it. That was really all it took to enable parallelization. Let's take a look here. In a second, we're going to see 2 tests running in parallel. So you can see here, look at that, 2 threads running in parallel at the same time. And when it's done, this was the final outcome for me. The same 9 tests finished in 54 seconds. So what that means is the 78% speed improvement in less than 5 minutes, right? It was literally just copy and pasting this. Of course, one very critical piece of parallelization is my code was structured correctly to allow parallelization from the beginning. But after that, just adding this, we got a 78% speed improvement, 0 degradation in our test quality, and we enabled parallel scaling. So what this means now is I can keep adding tests, and as long as they are no slower than my slowest test, that's probably one of my visual tests, right? Like, let's see here, my visual test. One of these tests is going to be my slowest. It'll take like 2 minutes, let's say. Any test that I add that's below 2 minutes and that also doesn't exceed my 100 parallel threads capacity will never increase the test suite runtime because it's just another thread that's going to be added. And so until I exceed those 2 parameters, my test suite is always going to be this fast up to as 100 tests, or until I get like a test that's 3 minutes in there, and then my entire test suite is going to take only 3 minutes, even though I can have like 100 tests in there. So hopefully that makes sense for you all, and hopefully that connects all the dots in terms of parallelization. And exactly what I was talking about was more tiny atomic tests running in parallel is way more powerful than a few giant tests. Let me know if stuff doesn't make sense. I put a link here to a case study I wrote, how I helped that customer achieve 97% test suite runtime. It was a number of things, but the 2 primary attacks were making tests atomic and parallelization. I'm curious, were you all able to run the tests in parallel, and did you all have awesome speed improvements in your test suite? If you want to drop it in the Zoom chat, I would love to hear from you. Ferris Bueller. Yeah, Shubham, you can do this locally. You can do this in remote. Locally, we are limited by our computer's processing capacity. So again, as I've said, I've been able to run like 75 threads in parallel, but those virtual machines were being spun up in Sauce Labs. Can your machine handle 75 browsers being ran at the same time? Probably not. You know how much computing capacity Chrome consumes, right? But it can probably run 20, 30 at the same time, depending on the machine. So locally, that's a disadvantage. That's why regardless of where I work and who I work with, I always have a cloud grid environment because the scaling is just insanely easy. So yeah. Has anyone been able to execute tests in parallel using our demonstration? And did you get some cool and fast feedback? Yes, awesome. I think I saw, yeah, you saw the power of parallelization, right, El? Well, I'm curious, how fast did your suite of tests run? While we're waiting for final feedback, let's come back. Let's go summarize everything. Yeah, cool. Yeah, happy to hear that L also got around 70% faster. And as I said, to me, the coolest thing is that, again, up to 100 threads, if I just keep adding tests, my suite will never be slower. So cool. This is going to be the conclusions. So before you go, I have a few asks. Okay. So the workshop was totally free. We are here supporting a wonderful cause, helping kids all over the world in K through 12 learn computer science. So if you haven't already, I please ask that you donate. We are at $260, which is phenomenal. Sauce Labs will match that. If you haven't already, please donate whatever you feel is appropriate. Again, it just goes to an amazing cause. Me or Sauce Labs, I don't get a penny of it. I'm just doing this workshop because I want to provide for you all, and I want to help a greater cause, which is code.org. So you can click this link and do that here. Yeah, thank you so much, Susie, for sharing the link. The link is in the chat. I'll also drop it in the Slack chat. Oh, sorry, that was the build. Oh, I keep doing that. Oh well, sorry, lost it. If you want to participate in the next Testing for Good workshop, my goal, this is actually my second one. The first one I did in JavaScript. Obviously, Java is a totally different programming language. My goal is to make this like a regular thing, like every quarter, every 6 months, and to keep making it better and bigger. So if you want to stay up to date, you can definitely follow me on any of your preferred social medias, and then I'll post about when we do the next one, and you can join again, and we can continue to learn and grow together. Third piece of action is I would love anonymous feedback from you on this workshop so that I can keep getting better and keep making this workshop better for everybody. So if you just click this link, I'm going to copy this link address. and the feedback is totally anonymous. It's like 3 questions. I would love to hear from you so that, again, I can keep getting better. And then probably the reason why most of you stuck around, it's to get 2 winners for backpacks. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to just look at the list of attendees in my Zoom, and I'm just gonna scroll, close my eyes, and randomly pick somebody. Okay, we're gonna pick 2 people. Okay, so the first person that I got is Shraddha Pradeep. Are you available? Oh, amazing. Okay. Shraddha, are you on Slack? In our Slack channel? Yeah, Shraddha, if you want to email the details would be amazing. Just give us your information and we'll send you a cool backpack. Okay. You can, Shraddha, you can also email me directly too here, Nikolai@saucelabs.com. Just in case. Okay, cool. Congratulations, Shraddha. Let's do one more winner. Faisal Dama. Are you available, Faisal? Faisal, are you available? Going once. Going twice. I should put the Jeopardy song. Okay, it looks like Faisal is no longer available. He's not responding. He or she is not responding. I'm just checking everything because I don't want to give anyone hope and then Faisal shows up and is like, hey, I want my backpack. Like, I'm so sorry. Okay, cool. I think Faisal is no longer here. We're gonna do another winner. Let me go. This is Shubham Bhutkar. Shubham Bhutkar, are you available? Yay, congratulations, Shubham. If you're on Slack, can you please Slack me or Susie or both of us directly your information and we'll send you a Sauce Labs backpack? Yeah, or you can email as well. Yep. You got my email, right? There's my email. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just email me the details. It's at the top. There you go. Yeah, everyone. So just thank you all so much for taking time out of your day. I hope everybody learned a lot. Take it to your workplace, improve your testing. I linked a bunch of extra resources here that I talked about, but I didn't cover in depth because we unfortunately only have 3 hours. But you can learn a lot more there. Again, thanks so much. It's been so much fun. And I'll see you all later. Bye.